Hi there, my name is Suze, and I work with women to help them find balance between their internal masculine and feminine energies so that they can have lives that feel really emotionally fulfilling, full of love and connection. My hair, I'm giving you guys a heads up for those of you that have been following me for a little bit. My hair is driving me crazy today. So we'll see what happens. But my hair is driving me crazy. It doesn't want to do what I want it to do. Today, I want to talk about three really important things that I learned from my divorce. And divorce is not something that I like to talk about a lot publicly because there is such a negative energy that does come attached, the connotation to the word, the term divorce. And I really hesitated on putting this video out there, but at the same time, part of my mission and part of my intention of speaking to women and helping women and empowering women on their soul journey in connection with their heart and their soul, part of that is the reality that for many of us, divorce is a thing that comes along with that growth journey of recognizing that we entered into a marriage not having the tools or the awareness of what marriage actually is, what we actually wanted or needed or expected in a marriage, and just being really going into marriage honestly, being set up for failure, being really set up for failure. And anyone who knows me, who's worked with me, or if you've been listening to me for any length of time, you know that in my heart, I am the biggest champion for relationships staying together and doing whatever you can do to work on the issues, the problems that are arising, and grow together. And in that process of growing and really looking the relationship problems dead in the eye and working on them together, the bonding experience and the connection and the intimacy that can develop out of that if a couple chooses to do the work together, that is to me personally the most beautiful thing in the world. And that's really where my mission is to empower people and help people do their own internal work so that they can come to the table in partnership, in connection, in relationship, come to the table more equipped to work through the relational things that come up to create a stronger unit moving forward. I am all about long term commitments. And so it is unfortunate that divorce is something that I have to talk about. But I do have a gratitude and appreciation for my divorce story because it really gave me a very interesting experience, let's just say, a very diverse and wild experience for me to learn from and help other women who may be finding themselves in a similar situation. So, that right there is my intention with this video. It is not to be anything negative, it is not to elicit sympathy or anything like that. It is to take something that really does not need to be a bad, dramatic, huge, out of control thing. Okay, it really doesn't need to be. And let's just get into it. I'm just not gonna say any more about that. Three things, okay? Three things. I keep it real here, you guys. Really real. Three things I learned from my divorce. Number one, I think, is the most important. Number one, the most important thing that I learned from my divorce was value. What do I value? What is my value? Value. And that may sound really obvious. But let me put it to you this way. I really don't think that most people realize how much they adopt into their subconscious a value system that is not actually their value system, and they just subconsciously, unconsciously live from this value system that is not authentically theirs. and that they picked up maybe from childhood, or they picked up from a religion, or they picked up from a different relationship that they were in that affected them very dramatically at an emotional and psychological level. But somewhere, because I know that's my story, I picked up this value system of where my value was. What did other people value about me? What was my value chip, right? You could kind of say out there in the world with other people and relationships, instead of taking the time to go within myself and find my own value. Now, here's the thing, too. Again, this may sound very simple, but in my experience, that journey of deciding my value system took me 3 years. 3 years of really painful, very vulnerable, very self transparent inner work. 3 years of pulling out this sense of value that was not authentically mine, discarding it, and figuring out what I actually value. What do I value about myself? What do I feel is my most valuable thing that I can bring to the table in relationships, in partnerships? And then also outside of that, therefore, what do I value in connection with other people? What's important to me? And the reason why I put this as point number one and the most important is because in my divorce and in other divorce stories I've heard from other women, okay, a lot of women can go through a divorce, and the biggest emotional and psychological battle is exactly the fact that they thought they were giving enormous value into their family, into their children, into their husbands, into the entirety of their marriage and their family life as a mother and as a wife, as a stay-at-home mom, as the one who ran the household, as the one who did all the things. They may have thought that they were giving enormous value into the household, into the marriage. And then when the divorce comes, you're treated with absolute zero value. And what you invested in the length of your marriage is completely not shown in how the divorce plays out and how you are treated and how you are or are not rewarded in your divorce. And how these non-ethereal, energetic things from the heart space that a woman may be investing into her marriage, into her children, into whatever the marriage situation was, is completely written off, completely not acknowledged. And that could be absolutely destroying to a woman and her sense of identity, her sense of self, her sense of worth in the world, who she is, what she has to offer. Devastating to a woman emotionally and mentally. So for anyone out there, whether or not you're in a divorce is irrelevant. Doing the work to find your value is insanely important. I have something that I wrote down. It actually came through to me this morning before I got out of bed. And so I jotted it down, and I want to kind of read it because it was really powerful. And this is something I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on, because the idea of self-worth and self-value is something that I really feel is something I need to gift to the feminine collective. You have to know what exactly it is that you value about yourself, and then be in partnership with others that value that same thing and see it in you. Then you have to live your life in such a way that everything you choose to engage your energy with supports this value of self and being seen in that way. I want to leave that there for the value piece. Point number one, thing I learned from my divorce: value, a whole new value system. Number two, what I learned from my divorce: don't spook the deer. Okay. Now, my best friend is the one who gets the credit for that little phrase, don't spook the deer. She gets that. But it's really interesting to me how we kind of developed this whole idea of don't spook the deer as we were getting divorced. My divorce story was almost 3 years long. Hers was a year long, and just about a year long. And so there was a period of time where our divorces overlapped a little bit. I started mine first, and then she got divorced after me. And so there was a period of time where they overlapped. And we came up with that thing, the whole don't spook the deer. But then, even after our divorces were done and we moved on into life, we really started to see how that phrase really applies in many different parts of life. Okay? So, going back into my story with my divorce, don't spook the deer. Here's something that I really learned that was really important to learn, and something that often comes up in conversation in my calls, in my healing sessions with the women that I work with the divine feminines that I work with on their inner energetic healing journeys. The idea of don't spook the deer is the fact that a lot of us women, particularly when it comes to relationship type stuff, okay? We may be internally thinking about something for years and years and years and years and years, and we can be internally conflicted about making a decision for years and years and years, and we can be unhappy in a relationship for years and years and years and not let anyone know besides maybe our closest girlfriend or two, but not let the actual person know. And then all of a sudden, one day we wake up and it's like we snap. We wake up one day, we decide we're done, and we're out. And you know, when you hit that place, no one can talk you out of your decision. When you have spent years and years and years getting to a place of deciding to leave your marriage or leave your relationship or whatever it is, no one can change your mind when you hit that final breaking point. But here's the thing. The people that were involved, they didn't know your process of years and years and years of being in internal conflict with yourself to get yourself to that point of decision. Maybe you didn't tell them. In my situation, it was my family. My family had no idea that for years and years and years, I was bouncing around in my head the idea of divorce. Should I get divorced? Should I not get divorced? Should I get divorced? Should I not get divorced? They had no idea. And the person that I was married to didn't have any idea until the very, very end as well. I gave him like 2 warnings. I gave him 2 warnings at the very end that I was significantly not happy. And then when nothing changed, I flipped my switch and I was out. No one could talk me out of it. But here's the thing. That will spook the deer. Major life decisions, the people that will be affected by these decisions, they need to be walked through the process with you. It is a huge process for a woman to get to the place where she decides to get divorced. It is not an overnight decision, even though it may appear to be by anyone on the outside. It is never, never a quick decision for a woman to leave and enter marriage, particularly if there's children involved, and also particularly if she is dependent on her husband as the breadwinner, as the one who provides the financial support for the household, and she is a stay-at-home mother. I can guarantee you, she has done everything she can to try to not to get to that place of divorce. So if she got to that place of divorce, she's been in conflict for years to get there. So don't spook the deer is simply, if you're making a major life decision or if there's something going on inside of you of conflict and you're really, really going back and forth about something, you have to lead the people through your process with you. If you don't have to, but if you don't choose to do that, when you do make that decision, it is going to shock and awe everyone that is affected by this decision in such a way you are going to have a hot mess you're going to have to deal with. So not only now are you dealing with the repercussions of the exact decision that you have made to change your life radically, but now you're going to have to deal with all the emotional outbursts and all the emotional reactivity of everyone around the perimeter of that decision you have made. So I have learned, number 2, from my divorce, if there's something going on that is a major radical decision that I am contemplating, or something that I am struggling with or something that I am going through, I make sure I communicate to anyone who could be affected by whatever this thing is that I'm working through, and I walk them through my process as well. Don't spook the deer. Point number 3. This is a very specific point number 3, and I'm going to go brief on this because I'm already over 15 minutes, and I personally don't like to go more than 15 minutes on my videos. My own energetic reasons. So, point number 3 is stay in your role or stay in your lane, stay in your energetic role. This is very specific. This message is for anyone who is contemplating, a woman who is contemplating a divorce, or if you're in a divorce, and if this is your scenario in your divorce. This is very, very specific, okay? In my situation with divorce, a huge reason of what gave me permission to get divorced and to proceed with my divorce personally, part of that was recognizing I had entered into my marriage more in the masculine space, and I've talked about that in previous videos. The majority of my life, I was living in a very masculine energy, a wounded masculine space. And so when I got married, I was taking on more of the masculine role in my marriage. And towards the end of my marriage is when I really started doing some healing work on myself and some personal growth. And the ideas of energies, of feminine and masculine energies, came forth through to me, came into my awareness. And I recognized how I actually have a feminine core, and I wanted to be the feminine in my relationship, in my marriage. The problem with that is that the other person that I was married to had no desire to go into the masculine role. So now we have two people, right, who previously the polarity was working because one was taking on predominantly the masculine role and one was taking on predominantly the feminine role. And now one person wants to switch these energetic roles, but the other person does not. That is never going to work in a relationship of two people being in the same polarity. Never. And that was a huge reason of my divorce, okay? So if you find yourself in that scenario of you were previously in your masculine and now you want to soften and be more in your feminine, but the person you're with does not want to switch their polarity. If you find yourself in that situation and now you're going through a divorce or contemplating a divorce, you need to know that you still must stay in the energetic role throughout your divorce. It took me a while to figure this out, but once I figured it out, it started changing everything in my divorce. And my divorce went from a situation that was very stuck and frustrating to me to finally making some movement forward. I had to stay in the masculine lane, the masculine energy, to move my divorce through and close it out. Now, that may sound like I was being inauthentic, but here's the thing. You're forgetting when you enter into a relationship, the roles that you take on, it's a silent, invisible agreement or contract. It's an energetic contract agreement that you create with someone, that these are our roles. So if you're the one who's deciding to break apart the relationship because you no longer want to take on that role, you still have the responsibility to stay in that energetic contract that you agreed to at the beginning of the relationship. You have to see it through to the end. You signed up in one particular way, and until the relationship is completely resolved in one way or another, you have to follow your contract through to the end. So I'm going to leave it there because I went over my time. Those are my 3 things that I learned from my divorce. I hope this was helpful. If any of you have learned things from your divorce and you want to drop them below in the comments, I would love to hear from you. Make this more of a community effort to really help women as we move through these really challenging relationship things. Thank you so much for listening and have a beautiful day.